93, 93, 93. This is Aman Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. Today, I would like to speak on the equation of the moon in Leo. See, what is very interesting about this particular equation is this is where the priestess meets Babylon. We understand the priestess or the high priestess to represent the spiritual qualities of the feminine currency. So once we begin to study the mysteries of Babylon or Leo or lust, we know Babylon to be the mother of abominations. So on one side of the equation, we have purity. And on the other side of the equation, we have the complete opposite. So these opposites must find a way to complement each other. Because on the surface, they're already at odds. As the moon, you can say, represents the element of water. And of course, Leo represents the element of fire. And of course, the water and the fire elementally cancel each other out. So on the surface, we're already dealing with conflicting forces. Babylon wants to go in the direction of the strange and the unusual, while the priestess wants to go in the direction of purification. So once we find the common denominator between these two forces, it becomes a great example of how these equations many times represent conflicting or contrasting energies that somehow need to correlate and correspond. So it forces us to find a common ground. So in the particular case of the moon in Leo, if we understand the moon to represent our responses or what triggers the response, in the case of moon in Leo, it would be the energy of Leo that would trigger the subconscious forces. So what this means is every time some type of abomination was observed, it would activate the subconscious. So this will represent or manifest as anything in the realm of Babylon would trigger the subconscious, which in its natural state wants to remain in a position of purification. That's why the high priestess is seated on the throne, whereas Babylon rides the beast. So we once again run into these contrasts. One is in motion, while the other represents stillness. So, how do we bring these two forces together harmoniously? The way we do this is instead of looking at Babylon as an abomination, or you can say the lower self or the lower forms, and the high priestess represents the higher forms, we instead look at Babylon as the holy and the high priestess as the unholy, because that forces us to tap into the darker forms of the high priestess as she sits between the two pillars. One represents mercy, the other represents severity. So when we look at the high priestess, you can say we essentially automatically tap into the pillar of mercy because we are looking at the divine principles of the feminine currency. However, the opposite of that will represent, you can say, the destructive form of the feminine currency, as we know as Kali, the destroyer. This also represents the energy of the high priestess. It is just well covered or guarded or veiled. So the high priestess is, you can say, the one who initiates death as well, but it is veiled. It's there, however, it is veiled. All Babylon does is unveil what is already naturally there, but well shielded, well purified. So, in the presence of Babylon, the truth is brought to the surface. The truth of the high priestess tapping into the pillar of severity. Now she becomes the assassin. Now she is unlocking the secrets of her sexuality. Now she is traveling along the path of Lilith versus Eve, which once again was already there. But due to the stimulation, of Leo or Babylon, that force was or can now express itself without the veil, which is why Babylon appears in the book of Revelation, which is, the end of time, the apocalypse, when the veil is no longer a shield. Now things must be observed or viewed in their natural state instead of their projected state. So this is why this equation of the moon in Leo on the surface represents contrast. But as you see, as we dig into the core of the energies and the elements, we begin to see the common denominator and then unlock the hidden frequency that is veiled, the unveiling of the high priestess. 93, 93, 93.